Do you want to see how I sometimes make my sound effects? Hi guys, so today I figured I would do something that I probably should have done already and show you some of my actual work. So I've lately been leaning more towards sound design, sound effects creation with some mixing still, and updating the textures and sounds in people's music as well. But that's mostly it. So I figured today would be a good day to pick a sound effect that I've been working on for a video game project that's still in progress. The game is called Orbulous, and we are almost done with it, so keep an eye out for it. It's a mobile game, and basically it's a match 3 with a brand new twist on the game mechanic. So it's a more dynamic matching puzzle game in the sense that it's action-packed and it's fast-paced, instead of slow and passive like most. It puts the entire board game in the control of the player as they collect orbs to make matches and try to avoid negative orbs. I've had to play it a bit while working on it, and it's actually a lot of fun. Anyway, there are these little orbs in the game, and so today I'm going to pick one of the sounds that I made for those orbs and deconstruct how I made it. Okay guys, so I wanted to talk about this sound first. So this sound is the Orbulite Burst Color Destroy sound, and basically what it is it's a whole bunch of orbs bursting all at once. So there's like a function in the game where a bunch of them will burst at once. So I just wanted to kind of show that. And so the orbs they're like little bubbles. So basically the whole sound sounds like this. And you'll see I have a whole bunch of different layers here. So I figured it'd be a good example of how I will take a sound and kind of chop it up and then rearrange it, reorder it, make changes, and then slap it all together. So it's kind of like a collage of sound. And it's also a good example of how I'll use like Foley and different sounds that I've downloaded off the internet. So things like freesound.org is a really good website to get sounds because you can actually search based on like the Creative Commons license. You can make sure that it's free for commercial use, which is great. So I like using freesound.org a lot. And I also have like a bunch of different sound effect libraries that I'll draw from, or I'll just record my own Foley. I like doing that. But basically, if I download it or if I use something from a library, especially if the job is making my own sound effects, I will make sure that I change it in a whole bunch of different ways before I then present it as my sound. And that's just kind of, I think that's a good thing to do professionally. When people start working on films and stuff, it can be a little bit different because sometimes people don't mind you just throwing a sound effect in there that's from a library, as long as it fits well with the film. But when I'm making my own sounds, I do like to change them in a bunch of different ways. So let's look at what I have here. So I know I have this one sound here at the bottom that's kind of separate from the others. I didn't use any of these things. So you'll see like in a lot of these sessions, I'll have extra stuff that I didn't use. And that's just basically because I'm like, well, maybe I'll use it later, or maybe I want to bring it in later. So I don't like delete it. Sometimes I'll have hidden tracks over here that I'm not currently using. But yeah, that's just basically because I might want to go back to it. So it can look kind of messy, but that's basically it. So there's this sound here, which is kind of like the magic sound in the background. So I have that. I believe I just, that's from like some sort of a library, or I downloaded it from Freesound. And then I just added this fade to it using its aux track, I believe. It's routed through there. +3/4, +3/4. Yeah, so I did route it through there. And you'll see with all my aux tracks, what I do is I route my audio to the aux track. This is kind of an unnecessary aux track, but it's probably here because I had other things paired with it. Basically, what I'll do is I'll hold Command, and then I'll click to solo safe the aux track. So that's basically, so if I solo this track or any of the other audio tracks that are going to my aux track, I don't have to also solo the aux track just to hear what's going through it. So it just saves me time to solo safe it. So yeah, I just hold Command, and then I click on the solo button to solo safe it. So that's a good trick for you guys. Another trick that I didn't really do a good job with here is I'll put notes in the comments describing, what it is or where I got it from or something like that. I think we'll have more of that in another session. So yeah, basically that's that little sound. And let's look at these sounds, which is the bulk of this sound effect. So I believe these are kind of alike. So I'll kind of solo these so you can hear them. So those are just different water droplet sounds. I think these are kind of the same. So you can hear how there's two of them, one right after the other. So I did that on purpose just to kind of make it a little more 3D sounding, if that makes sense. I don't know if anyone else thinks of it as 3D, but I do. So yeah, it's just little water droplet sounds. I kind of chopped them up, added fades, and then positioned them very carefully so that it would have a timing that I liked. And then we have these sounds here, which I believe are all alike. And so with those, I think I just pitch shifted them, copied and pasted, and then just changed their clip gain levels here so that they'd be have a little more natural sound. You know, you add a little bit of variance, it makes things sound a little more natural, more organic, less like you just copied and pasted the same sound over and over. So that's why I liked, you know, part of why I like to do things like change the clip gain when I copy and paste something over and over, change the timing so it's not exactly the same timing between each one, and then do things like pitch shift or change the speed of it or things like that, just to make it sound a little more organic and less like I just took the same Foley recording and you know, copied and pasted it, which is what I did essentially. But yeah, so that's that. Let's listen to these together. And then all the sounds together. And that's basically it. So I have all these routed to this aux. I have that solo saved again. And that's basically just so I could process these differently than this sound and, you know, whatever else was with it. So I'll do that and then have it all feed to the master track. And that's basically it. But that's a good example of how I'll kind of like copy and paste things and make like a collage of sound to make my sound effects. So let's go on to the second one. Okay, so this is the second sound that I wanted to show you guys. And basically what it is it's the fire spawn sound. So there's different elemental orbs in the game. So there's like fire, electricity, there's a water orb, there's an earth orb, stuff like that. So this is what happens, what plays when the fire orb spawns. So let me just pull these guys open. And just like with the last one, it's a good example of how I'll take sounds that I've either recorded through Foley or I've downloaded off freesound.org or I've gotten off of a sound effects library, and I'll just kind of put them all together. And this is a really, really simple example of that. So I think some of this is probably Foley that I recorded. So basically, again, I have everything routing to an aux. I have that aux solo saved. And a lot of times I'll put some basic processing on the aux. This one just has a limiter. It's like really simple. And then I'll also do things like I'll put notes to myself. So here I have like the EQ is on for the second sound only. So I have two sounds here. This is one, this is another one. And so basically I'll write notes to myself so I can recreate those sounds properly without having to have like a whole separate session or a separate track or something like that. So I just know to turn the EQ on and off depending on which sound I'm working on. So let's listen to the fire sound. So this might have been it spawning and this might have been it bursting. I kind of forget. But anyway, so here are the sounds. Let's listen to the different parts of them. So this is, I think this one might be the Zippo lighter sound. Yeah. So it's basically just like a Zippo lighter. I think I processed this to make it sound a little more gritty. Yeah, let's hear it with the EQ. Because it's supposed to have the EQ off, I believe. EQ on for second sound, yeah. Yeah, so that's basically that part of it. So I just have the lighter sound, and then I have this sound, which looking at it, I believe it's like the little bell chime sound. And that's basically it. I basically took it, I added a fade. You can always double click on your fades here to adjust them. That's basically it. So it's a lighter sound, a bell sound, and then this is like a fire burning, like a fire raging sound. I just picked when it would come in very carefully so that it'd be right after the, the impact of the lighter. And so I like boosted the lighter sound a bunch, adding effects to it. And then I have this raging flame coming in to make it sound more elemental and powerful. And then I added the bell to add a little bit of magic, so we get the whole sound. And then a lot of times I'll do things like I'll reverse the sound or I'll pitch shift it. We saw some pitch shifting in the last one. So I believe this is just this sound but reversed, and then I changed the fade completely and changed the length and stuff. But it's basically just a reversed version of this sound, I believe. And I just gave it a really sharp cutoff, which pairs up with these sounds, which are, they should be kind of the same thing, just in a different order. So that's like a firecracker sound, like a Foley firecracker. More bells. That's something I reversed. It's been a little while, so I'm sorry I don't remember all the details of this, but hopefully it gives you a good idea of like my general process for making sound effects. Usually there's a lot more layers than this for something like this. Usually I do a whole bunch of layers for a sound effect, but that's basically it. So we get this whole sound together. Let me put the EQ back on for you guys. So just Command click to make that active again. And then I'll show you guys some of this other stuff. So a lot of times I'll have a whole bunch of my scrap audio like out here somewhere, or even on like hidden tracks. Sometimes I've gotten better at kind of hiding the stuff that I don't want to see. But that's basically so I can bring it back into play at some point. So a lot of times I'll have scrap in here. So like this one, that's like the firecracker sound. That's the raging fire sound. More firecrackers. Something reversed. I actually don't really like that sound. It's like the frequencies in it like are grating on me. But I don't mind how I used the section of it in my actual sound effects. I just don't like that one sound. This might be the Zippo. Let's see. Yeah, so that's the Zippo. So yeah, I'll have a bunch of scrap here, and then I'll kind of, you know, drag bits and pieces of it over till I have it kind of formed in my head, and then I'll kind of touch it up and add the fades and add any effects that I want to add, like reverb or EQing it or chopping it up, adding fades, adjusting the fades, things like that, pitch shifting, you know, whatever I feel like doing, whatever feels appropriate. And that's basically this sound. So let's go on to the next one. Okay, so this is a boss reveal sound that I made. I had a whole series of boss sounds that I had a lot of fun making. I really love like the horror sounds, the creepy sounds. But yeah, so this is just one of the creepy boss sounds that I made. And I wanted to show you this one because it's a good example of how I'll use this one tool that I like to use when I'm making sound effects. So this tool, it's called it's made by ReFX. It's REFX, and it's called Nexus. And not sponsored by them at all. I just use the tool. I've never talked to them. I don't really know them, but basically this is what it looks like, and it's really easy. It's just like any other MIDI instrument, but you just plug it in, and they have a whole bunch of different instrument sounds, right? So different pads and stuff, pianos, whole series of different sounds that you can assign to your MIDI, just like any other MIDI instrument. But what I like is they have some stuff like the Halloween pack, and they have a few other things that even within these instrument packs, a lot of them, they'll have things that are great that you can use for some sort of element within a sound effect. Like some of the voice stuff's kind of cool. But yeah, so basically what I did with this one is I used this tool to add a little bit more of a creepy sound to my sound effect. So basically all I have here is I have some MIDI. It's in clips. Let me show you notes. So I have my MIDI notes, and I like carefully picked which notes to do here. Usually I'll drag it around and kind of experiment, and the instruments will sound, even the sound effecty sounding ones, sound effecty, that's a word. Even the sound effect ones, they'll sound a little different based on what note you're on, and sometimes they'll change completely, kind of the way like a drum set pack will change for like a MIDI instrument. But yeah, so basically I put these notes here. I picked how long they were very carefully so that it would have a very specific sound and then a specific decay. And then this one's staggered a little. If you look, it's, let me zoom in. It's staggered a little. So this one starts first and then that one starts. And that's basically it. So I have these guys routed. They're all routed through to this one aux. So again, just my little solo saved aux thing. I just have a simple limiter on it. All I have is, I also have this plugin on here, which I like. And I cranked it because I like to do ridiculous things when I make sound effects. If I was doing something like using this on an actual like vocal or something, I wouldn't go this hardcore. But for sound effects, you can go crazy with things like that. Do things you wouldn't otherwise do. So basically, let's listen to the sound because we haven't listened to the sound yet. So that's my sound. Mostly the aux is to give it a nice decay that I liked. I put a little bit of a limiter on them usually no matter what, just to kind of boost it a little bit, but I don't want to overdo it and make it sound like overblown. So yeah, so that's basically it. Let's listen to each sound here. So that's clearly some sort of Foley. More creepy Foley wrestling sounds, which I'm really good at doing. It's so easy to make creepy sounds. I don't know why. Maybe I'm creepy. Okay, and then we have the stars of the show, the Nexus sounds. So you can hear it like really cutting off as soon as the note ends. And I just liked how those cut off there. So I kind of had the timing that way because of that. So let's listen to the whole thing. And that's basically it. A lot of times my sound effects, they don't all start at the same point. Like these pretty much all start at the beginning. This is like the only one that's staggered. A lot of times it'll be a lot less, it won't look like that. There'll be things starting over here or whatever. But this is just how it ended up being with this one. And you can see I have a whole bunch of hidden tracks here. So you can kind of get into looking at those. So I usually have a whole bunch of scrap, different things that I started using. You can see I have other like Nexus packs on here, different sounds. These are probably a part of some sort of boss sound that we could then cut out of the game so it'll never see the light of day. But that's part of doing sound design, is having things cut. So yeah, so that's basically it. I really love doing the creepy sounds. I don't always use the Nexus pack. I just, for this one, I kind of like these sounds, so I stuck with them. And that's my creepy boss sound. Let's do the next sound. Okay, so this is a session that I have for different level select sounds. So there's the bonus level select, there's a challenge level select, and I believe there's a regular level select. So basically I wanted to show you guys because I used some other plugins that I use to make sound effects a lot. So like the twin plugins. So it's basically Fab Filter. They make some really good plugins and I'll use their stuff to make weird sounds a lot. They're really good for that. They have a whole bunch of different plugins that are great for that. But I just kind of wanted to show you what it could sound like. So, let's see. These are muted because what I did is I made this and then I recorded it to this because sometimes it'll sound slightly different with each iteration. And so I like to get a recording of the one that I really liked and keep that so then it can be stable and I can work with it. And if I really want to, I can go back to the notes here. But basically a lot of times what I'll do with my sound effects, let me just open up this one and we can kind of look at this one as our example. So bonus level select. So we have bonus level select. We also have level select. I kind of use the same methods for both of these, I believe. Let me look. Yeah, so I'm just using the twin plugin for both of these. Oops, my bad. I'm like trying to look at what I'm doing and then reach down to my keyboard here. So yeah, I kind of use the same methods for these level select sounds. So I made some musical notation here, and then I added the twin plugin to make it sound a little fun, make the instrument, make it sound interesting. And then I recorded it down to an actual sound effect. So we have the bonus level select sound, which you guys just heard. But yeah, basically I'm just writing some music and then adding a plugin on it, an instrument of sorts. Sometimes it's more musical than other times. So with this, I did really short notes. And you can see what I wrote here. So basically, I picked a chord. I did a really short exploration of the chord. And then I added an instrument to it. Let's see, and we can listen to what it sounds like when it's played through the actual plugin. So it sounds like I cut out the lows on that. Yeah, I really cut out the lows. So I'll do a lot of sculpting with sound. So I'll start with a sound and I'll be like, oh, I really like this part of it, but I don't want that low hum in the bottom, or I don't want, a certain frequency to be in there. So I'll do a lot of like really sharp sculpting. Like if you look at the EQ, that's pretty drastic. We don't do that a lot with music necessarily. But with sound effects, I tend to do more dramatic things, like I was saying before. So I'll EQ it more dramatically. I'll cut things out more dramatically. I'll do dramatic drop-offs with my fades, stuff like that. So yeah, so I made that sound, and then I took out that low end, added some of this refinement plugin on here to cut some of the harsher frequencies out. And then I just added a limiter to it to make it a little more impressive. And that's basically it. So a lot of times I'll write some sort of musical notation, then I'll just throw an instrument on it. I'll tweak the instrument till I like it. And then it exists. Then it's my sound effect. The thing I've noticed with this type of technique is that if you do write a little musical line, like a melody of sorts, and then you make it really, really, really short, people don't really hear it as much as a melody. They hear it as a sound effect. So that's a trick that I use, is writing really short melodies and then squishing them down. But yeah, this plugin's a lot of fun. I kind of just fiddle with it until I like how things sound. I'll start at some sort of a preset and then I'll tweak it till I like it. And the more you do that, the more you get a sense of what the different parameters do. But yeah, that's basically it. So I think that's pretty much all I wanted to show you with this one. Let's see if I have anything interesting in the notes. No, not really. Cool. So let's move on to the next sound effect, and then I think that might be our last one. Okay, guys, so I wanted to show you as the last sound effect for today, my coin and gem purchase sounds. So this whole session is my different coin and gem purchase sounds. And this is just like with the last one. It's basically the same idea. So what I did is I wrote little musical melodies. I'll leave that there. It's kind of hard to see with this green. But I just wrote little melodies and then I made them really short. And then what I did was I assigned an instrument to them, and then I recorded them down to an actual audio track so I could have that stabilized, because sometimes it'll change slightly. A lot of the instrument plugins, like the FabFilter ones or the Nexus one, they'll be slightly different each time you play it back. So that's why I like to record things down. But that's basically it. I just wrote a melody and then assigned an instrument to it. So it's the same idea. Let's listen to what it sounds like. So that's them. I'm kind of still working on them. But yeah, so basically I just put a slight limiter on these, nothing too extreme. So you can see what I did here. It's really subtle. Yeah. Nothing too crazy here, just kind of throwing it on for an effect, really. Let's see. I think I was kind of inspired by like the Mario sounds here in terms of like just taking a really short and quick and upward moving melody and then adding an instrument to it and making that into a sound effect. But I guess, a lot of game design's kind of inspired by Mario or one of those original video games. So yeah, basically it's just another example of me writing a short melody, really compressing it down, making it short, and then adding an instrument to it. And I take a lot of time to pick these instruments, but I do kind of just start with presets and then that I like, and then kind of go from there, tweaking the different knobs and parameters until I like how it sounds. But that's basically it. So that's like the coin and gem purchase sounds. And you can see here it started out being like called token sound. And you can even see on my notes, which you might have just noticed, used to be coin treasure unlock. So as this game's progressed, like things have changed. They've dropped certain sounds and added certain sounds to the master list of sounds. And so I've kind of repurposed some, and I'll usually rework it a little bit based on how it's changed. But I definitely do repurpose things. So thanks for hanging out. I hope I wasn't too awkward for my first unscripted video content. I usually kind of plan when I'm saying more, but this time I just kind of sat down and opened things up and talked about it. And let me know what you guys think of that format in the comments, I guess. So that's it. I hope you guys liked this video, and please let me know what you think in the comments below. For today's question, I want to know, what fun techniques have you used to make a sound or a sound effect? Please leave your answers in the comments below. So thanks guys. As usual, if you like this video, please tell your friends about my channel, watch my other videos, or check out my Patreon. I'll be coming out with new videos every other Wednesday, and thanks for watching. Okay. I like making gross and creepy sounds. Those are sometimes the most fun to make. I don't know what else to say.